Good morning. This is the Blaine's Roll webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You get more information about this show and past shows on my website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about both people and organizations in Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Matt McCoy, who's Executive Director at Stronger Together Wellness, for being my guest today. Matt, feel free to wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Okay, and that is Matt McCoy. Matt McCoy is founder, I didn't realize that, and Executive Director of Stronger Together Wellness and North Carolina Certified Peer Support Specialist. A stroke survivor for over 14 years, Matt used his own experiences to guide and empower others on the recovery journey. He's passionate about mental health advocacy, and when not working, you'll find him outside gardening or cycling. So, first of all, Matt, I should ask you what I typically ask folks. Is this kid you grew up where?
I grew up in southern Mississippi.
Okay, and growing up as a boy in southern Mississippi, did you always know you wanted to be executive director of a nonprofit?
Gosh, not even close. My dream was to play second base for the Atlanta Braves.
Okay, second base for the Atlanta, not a bad dream. So
Yeah.
what happened that you didn't quite make it to the Atlanta Braves?
Well, a few things. Skill level was probably biggest. Height and weight and batting average and all those things.
As a kid, did you play in school, high
I
school and
did.
high
I
school?
started at very young, at 5 years old, playing t-ball all the way through high school.
And you played through high school. Did you go to college and play at all?
I did not play in college. No.
Okay, that was your level as a baseball career. So how
That's
did you then get into, so you went to college, what did you study in college?
environmental studies at UNC Asheville.
Okay, so you eventually got to this area. What did you do before you became executive director?
Well, I worked in the challenge course industry, which are climbing structures, climbing walls. You might see them at camps or
Right.
universities, and they're building and confidence building, and then just recreational structures. So,
So
and I
you,
did that for a number of years. I facilitated those courses and helped design and uh, just manage the sales of them. So yeah,
that sounds like it would have been a fun job, wasn't it?
it was very fun. Yeah, it
Hmm.
was a lot of fun.
And so you're moving along, and all of a sudden, then, not too, well, 14 years ago, you got hit with a stroke.
I did. I was 35 when I had my stroke. Yeah,
That must have been kind of a shock to you, wasn't
absolutely.
it?
Last, even farther from my mind than the nonprofit at being the Atlanta Braves second baseman. Yeah, no, it was not on my mind at all. I did not know anyone that had had a stroke. I didn't know the signs of a stroke, none of that. So when I was hit with this stroke, for me, it felt like the left side of my body had fallen asleep. And I was barely able to move the left side of my body. And in my mind, I just thought it would get better. I did not think to go to the hospital and get this checked out. I just thought it would gradually get better. Well, it did not. And
So,
I eventually made
so
it to the
interesting. So how long did that go on that you didn't get it checked out?
well, for 5 or 6 hours before
Yeah.
I went to the hospital. Yeah.
And so again, did they find out, or what caused that stroke? Did you ever find out?
Not sure. No, just really not sure. I did find out that I had high blood pressure after the stroke, which is a contributing factor to stroke, but not sure what caused mine.
Well, before the stroke, had you had high blood pressure?
Not that I'm aware of. At 35, I wasn't really going to a doctor regularly or getting my blood pressure checked and all the important, the blood tests and all those things. It wasn't a concern of mine. I was a healthy guy. I was active. I was running. I was eating healthy, and those things weren't on my mind.
And by the way, that's kind of a useful tidbit you just shared that people think, like I said, 35 or whatever age, were relatively healthy. So at that point in time, you weren't going to a doctor regularly or getting regular physicals.
Maybe once a year, once every other year, I go check in, but it was not a priority.
And so after you got that, now I guess you go on a regular basis. You see it.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I'm very diligent about going to see the doctor.
Okay. And that's, again, a lot of people don't do that, I guess, or afraid of it or something along those lines. And was there anything, when you saw the doctor at the 5 or 6 hours, was there anything that they told you happened or why it happened?
No, and honestly, that time when I was at mission, it was a real blur to me what was happening. I had no idea really. I mean, they may have said something, but it was pretty traumatic. You know, I knew something was very wrong.
By the way, let me ask you this, back to that first time you were at mission. Were you with anybody with you? Was anybody with you at the time?
I had a friend who was kind enough to take me to, well, strongly suggested that I go to the hospital.
Okay. Well, no, I think you mentioned something very useful if people are listening, that I always tell people that too. If you have to go to the hospital like you did, it's always a good idea to have somebody with you,
Yes, it
just to
is.
hear a second set of ears, because you mentioned kind of when you were there, I guess you were out of it somewhat, you didn't know what was happening. So he was there and he was able to at least tell you what was happening a little bit.
Well, and I would suggest strongly, and more importantly than having a friend take you to the hospital, if you do feel like you're having a stroke, and I can go through some of those
Please.
signs with you,
Yeah.
is call the ambulance and get there quickly because time is of the essence if you're having a stroke. If
Well,
you can get there within a 4 hour window, they can give you something called a clot buster drug, and that will can greatly reduce the effects of what a stroke might cause.
so when you went there though, did he take you to the hospital?
He did,
But
yes.
it wasn't within that 4 hour window
No,
though.
it was not.
Okay, it was 6 hours, and boy, we were lucky that
Yeah,
you
really
got
was.
okay in there. Well, since you mentioned it, yeah, let me ask you, Matt, because again, I don't know enough about strokes. I guess a lot of people don't. What were the warning signals, or what things you should be aware of?
So it's an easy acronym to remember. It's be fast, be fast. And B stands for balance. So if you notice a very distinct off balance, something's not right, kind of off balance. E is for eyes. So for me, my right eye was kind of jumpy, but I've seen in some survivors, they have tunnel vision. And again, it's something very, very different going on with your eyesight. Uh, let's see, B, eyes. F is face. So notice one side of or the other of your face drooping. And that's, a significant droop on one side or the other. A is for arms. So if you try to raise both arms, and only one will go up. So either the left one or the right one. So arms. Uh, S is speech. So garbled speech or not being able to say anything can be a sign of a stroke. And T is time, which again, get to the hospital as quickly as possible. Call the ambulance. They may even call Life Flight, the helicopter to come get you.
And boy, you were lucky though, because when you called your friend, he could at least understand you at that time,
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
you know. So
absolutely.
what made you decide that you better call your friend?
Well, he just happened to be at my house and noticed something was going on. And I being a 35-year-old man said, I will just wait and let this pass. Well, it got to a point where the wait it was over. He just said, this is not getting better. We need to go.
Well, fortunately for him. Now,
Absolutely.
also talk about the fact too that strokes aren't just for guys. Is that correct?
That's correct. They
Because a lot of women, and what I've heard or read, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, is a lot of women have it and then don't seek help or don't think, they're having a problem, and they're susceptible just as guys are.
absolutely male, female. any age. It just strokes do not discriminate.
I was going to ask you, so the age range, you think about strokes, guys older than 35, but it can be younger than 30. What's the youngest range?
Absolutely. The youngest I've seen is 18, but I'm aware of even younger than that, children having strokes. To from what I've seen, that's very uncommon. But as you get 18, 19 and higher, they can happen.
Let me ask you, is there anything that I should be doing or other people should be doing to, if not prevent strokes, minimize them? Or is there anything you can do?
Absolutely. So preventative measures are one most importantly probably is seeing the doctor, just checking in and getting your blood test. That annual physical is really important. The other is diet. You know, making sure you're eating well, eating a good diet, and that doesn't mean you have to. I lead some support groups, and I we talk about diet, and I say it doesn't mean you have to give up Bojangles every day of the week or all together. Just cut it back to once a week, twice a month, something like that. And if you need, and just substitute healthier foods for unhealthy foods. Put some vegetables in the place of something that's not as healthy. Substitute some yogurt for a pint of ice cream. That's my guilty pleasure.
Well, I would imagine though, looking at you, and even back then, you probably, or you thought you were a pretty healthy guy,
I
though.
did. I thought
It,
I was very healthy.
I
Yeah.
mean, and you're cycling, you're exercising, whatnot. How often were you, uh, so you're exercising on a regular basis, and that's a factor, I guess you want to tell me that it helps minimize
Yes.
strokes?
So exercise is another big one. So diet, regular doctor's visits, exercise, and another important one is community, is connection, staying connected. We get so isolated nowadays, especially, or through electronics or whatever. We tend to isolate, but I feel like connection is a really strong way to keep us healthy mentally.
And again, I guess you were lucky or fortunate you had this one friend. And by the way, since you mentioned him, let's go, can we give a shout out to him?
Absolutely. His name's Brian Wilson, and he's the president of our board of
Oh,
directors.
really?
Yeah,
Okay. So that's his thank you for
that's
looking
right.
out. I'm laughing because we have a mutual friend, Laura, and it's if you get involved with Matt, he's going to put you to work. So that's really cool. But that's so the connection, the networking, and having friends to help you, and that's really good. So, how did it then get from having a stroke, age of 35, relatively young age, to then forming a national or a state organization? How did that come about?
Well, so a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to volunteer at Care Partners, which is a
Right.
local post-acute care facility here in Asheville. And I was leading support groups for stroke survivors. And we're sitting in this circle, and I'm among other stroke survivors, and I see these folks, and I know what they're going to be experiencing when they leave that hospital, based on my experience, the challenges that lie ahead. And I was thinking in these meetings, oh wow, I wish I could help these people. I really do, but I can't go farther than this building or this circle that we're in. So after several months of this, I started talking to a lot of folks and doing some research and really decided that this was an important service that needed to be offered, not only in our community, but throughout the nation.
And the service for just stroke survivors primarily?
Well, it's stroke survivors and caregivers, because caregivers suddenly a loved one becomes a caregiver overnight. Just like a survivor's life changes, so does this loved one. They become responsible for this person in many ways, helping them navigate doctor's appointments, uh, different types of therapies, and then having to manage their own life as well. So there's a real need for that. So we're also offering that service.
And talk about the fact then that Matt, not only you're offering the service, but then I guess I never heard of it before, but you're a certified peer support specialist in North Carolina. And what exactly is that?
So that means I'm certified to use my lived experience to help other people. So I took a training or a series of trainings to develop skills like motivational interviewing and setting boundaries and things like that, and working with folks who've had a similar lived experience. So I can use my experience to work with them in an effective way.
Now, this training you received then, I assume wasn't just for stroke folks, right?
No, it's not. It's been primarily used in the substance use and mental health world, but I saw a way to apply it to stroke survivors, and that's what I'm doing. And to my knowledge, there aren't any others that are doing that in the state so far.
Now, when did you go through that program?
That was 3 years ago.
Okay, so which is interesting. So you had the stroke 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, did you then resume going back to work where you were working?
Oh no, there was a long period of recovery, and it's that's where strokes folks don't always understand the recovery process in a stroke. If you see one stroke survivor, you've seen one. They're we're not they're the what happens to each of us is not duplicated really. It's not this. It's different for every person. It's so for me, my recovery, it took several months, couple of years to even get to a point where I was ready to start trying to really focus on walking again. And then there are other setbacks to a stroke, which are isolation, anxiety, and depression, which, those things can be overwhelming because you're all of a sudden you're in this new body, and it's a body, your life has been changed, it's been altered dramatically. So you've got to try and figure out what's going on here.
Because I'm looking at you and listen to you, you sound like what I would call 100%, but I'll ask you, are you where you were before you had the stroke?
Well, I feel like I'm better than I was before the stroke. I really do. The stroke has taught me a lot, and it's helped me grow into a person that I like a lot more than I did prior to my stroke, and being more empathetic and more aware of other people, and wanting to help, genuinely wanting to help others.
So talk then about the process. So recover from the stroke or making progress on recovery. 3 years ago, then what led to you forming this nonprofit?
So the leading the support groups at Care Partners was a
Right.
really strong catalyst into doing this, and then the combination of being a peer support specialist, I saw how the two could mesh, and I could really use my skills as a peer support specialist to help survivors and caregivers.
But what's cool about it, though, not just help, though, but you then actually formed a nonprofit.
Yes,
And is that the
yeah,
first time you had ever done that before?
it is. Yeah.
And that must have been some learning experience to have to get. How long did that take you to get it off the ground?
Well, still learning. It's still, I think this is a lifelong process, which is great. But it took several months to really get it rolling, to create a board, to just put all the pieces in place to get it going. But we've been going for about 3 months now, and we're growing every day, not only in the participants that we're working with, but also the programs we're developing.
Oh, so I didn't realize that. So this organization, and I'm honored you're on the show as a result, is only then 3 months old, the
Yeah,
organization. Oh,
yeah.
well, congratulations. Wow, that's
Well,
some
thank you.
step. How long did it take you to get to the point, the research and the legal stuff, to the point where you then were ready to get it off the ground?
Oh, 3, 4, 5 months. It was a trudge for a while, but I was really encouraged to continue doing this based on the feedback I was getting from other survivors in the community in general. Just saw, they were just everyone I spoke with just said, yeah, that's a real need here, and so at no point did anyone say, well, that's not such a great idea. You may want to rethink that. It was always Yeah, that's something we need. So
So in terms of your board, then you were telling me, I think part of this off the air. It's kind of interesting that one of the members on the board, I don't know if you mentioned it, if I asked you about this, but one of the members is the guy who got you to the hospital that night, right?
yeah, that's right. He's our
Okay.
president.
So I guess we have to tell people if they're listening, if Matt gives you a call, he's going to put you to work.
That's right. That's
Well, that's
right.
really
Look
cool
out.
that he's stepped forward. What was his name again?
Well, I'm sorry, say that again.
His name, your chair of the board, what's his name?
His name is Brian Wilson.
Okay, very cool that he stepped forward and then is still willing to be your friend and still
Yeah,
be
oh
on the
yeah,
board.
yeah, for now, for the time being.
I mean, and we have another mutual friend. I won't ask you to pronounce her last name, but Laura W.
Yes,
Is on
Laura.
the board as well. And that was kind of interesting how you got her on the board. And you wanted to share that?
Yes, so Laura started out as my business coach, and Laura is the executive director or owner operator of Mosaic Consulting,
Right.
and she's a business coach. She started out as my business coach, and I thought, well, who better to ask to be on the board than someone who knows about? She's got tons of experience um, in managing nonprofits and in the business world. So I was overly excited when she said yes, she would join.
Now, when she was your business coach, were you working with her on forming this nonprofit or were you working with her other stuff?
I was, yes.
Okay, very cool. And so we're gonna have to go through all of it. How many other members on the board are there?
There are three other members,
Okay.
and one I believe we have a mutual friend also is Dr. Harry Zaremba,
Okay.
and he's with Apex Brain Centers.
Okay, good guy also. And
Absolutely, and they
ha,
do
ha,
wonderful work with stroke survivors and survivors of TBI, traumatic brain injury.
so how'd you get involved with Harry?
It's an interesting and kind of a long story, but I'll try and shorten it.
Sure.
We met through a forum that they were hosting that I went to,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
and I attended there and was really impressed with the work that he and Dr. Trayford are doing there. So I reached out and he said yes.
Okay, good guy. And since we mentioned, I guess, three of the members, you had two other board members. Who are they?
One is my father, who is
Okay.
a retired executive in human resources, and another is a nurse at Care Partners, Nancy Cox, and she helped really get the support group started or restarted at Care Partners, and she and I have been working together in that capacity for since I've been there for a couple of years.
Now talk a little bit, if you would. So if they get involved with your organization, there's a support group function of that as well.
Yes, we offer a number of support groups, not only for survivors, but also caregivers.
Good point.
In Asheville, and we're trying to expand to the more rural hospitals. We're taking one to Angel Hospital out in Franklin once a month. So that's another thing on our radar is to expand to the outer counties in Western North Carolina.
Now, how often do these support groups meet?
Once a month, currently once a month, and we meet in person, and we are starting to schedule our survivor meetings over Zoom because we know that there are limitations as far as transportation and getting to these meetings, and we know how important it is to have connection. So we're trying to open the doors up for folks to attend.
And talk, if you would, Matt, what happens at these support groups?
Well, it can be anything from an educational piece. We can talk about some of the things to expect along the your recovery journey, and it can also just be a general talk therapy session where we need to share our own experiences and what we've gone through, and just sharing those lived experiences are really helpful to other survivors, including
Now,
myself. I'm 14 years post-stroke, 15 years, and I still walk away with new information.
now I'm curious in terms of you just said some of the things to expect. Okay, and I guess there are different levels. I guess somebody has a stroke right away. There's a certain thing they have to go through, and like you said, 14 years later. What are some of the things people can expect?
Well, and I'll speak to this on my own experience, and that was a period of isolation. I did not want to reach out for help. I'd been very independent, and I felt, it just didn't feel right to ask for help, so I tended to isolate. And with that came some depression and also anxiety. My anxiety came from going out, and believe it or not, just like going to the grocery store, it was overwhelming. My senses were, I was hypersensitive to crowds, to noise, and things like that were just overwhelming. And another thing that almost every stroke survivor can expect is this fatigue. And there's no other way to explain it than you're just dead tired almost all the time, and it's exhausting. I mean, something as simple as taking a shower can wipe you out for the day.
Do you still go through that at all?
I don't, and I'm blessed in a number of ways in my recovery, and that's one of them through time. And I say that because in the beginning I certainly did have that fatigue, but as I got back into a good exercise routine and just a daily routine, I guess my stamina built up, but I can still get tired. Yeah,
But are you back now? Are you still you're cycling still again? Are you
I
back
am.
now?
Yeah, I am cycling.
Okay. And so when somebody goes through this, you being the example, so when you had the stroke, was your speech severely affected?
Mine was not.
Okay.
No.
Okay, but some people it is, right?
Some people will completely lose their speech. Some people have what's called aphasia, which is it's more difficult for them to speak. And some folks aren't affected at all or very little.
Now, does it come back though? You mentioned having difficulty speaking. Will
It,
it eventually come back?
It can, yes. I know a couple of folks that have gone years, 2, 3 years without the ability to speak, and then it slowly came back. And that it's not like it comes back without work. That's working with a therapist.
I was
Uh,
going, yeah, I was going to ask you that. So that's where I guess care partners and other groups like that come into
well,
play.
Care Partners is one. There's an aphasia support group out in
What was that?
the Biltmore Park. Western Carolina University hosts an aphasia group out there, and they have a wonderful staff and student body that help aphasia folks with aphasia.
So if folks want to get involved now within your organization, let's talk about that process. I guess there are a couple of ways, but one, you have a website, I assume.
We do. It's strongertogetherwellness.org.
That was probably something you'd never done before, right? Had you ever put together a website?
Gosh, no.
Okay, so that's one good way people can get involved. If they go to the website, what will they find?
They will see a list of resources. They'll see the services that we offer. They'll see who we are. They'll see contact information. So it's a fairly basic website, but a good bit of information there. And if there are any questions, folks are certainly welcome to reach out to me. My email address and my contact number are on the website.
Okay, and since you mentioned, if you would just repeat that website again.
Certainly, it's strongertogetherwellness.org.
Okay, so that's one way to get involved. Let me ask you two other ways. Are you actively seeking or do you seek volunteers to get
We
involved in the
do.
organization?
Yes, we would love volunteers.
What are you looking for from volunteers?
We're looking for stroke survivors that have had at least a year in their stroke recovery. We're looking for caregivers that would like to participate in our groups and also become a part of our support network, our caregiver support network. We want to grow this network so these caregivers can reach out to one another and share resources, and also maybe help another caregiver free up some time. That's a big issue. If you're caregiving all the time, you can't do your personal deal. You can't, it's hard to go shopping or go get a haircut or just anything like that. So
And also even, I guess, volunteers too to help some of the stroke survivors because I guess some people, it's sad, but it's real that don't have backup on their end, so that if, like you were lucky your buddy was there, but if you don't have a buddy there and you have to get to a doctor or you have to get to a haircut, whatever,
Right.
it's another need I guess people have, um, the name of food
Absolutely.
need. Um,
Absolutely.
and then also, we should mention it, but I assume that at some point in time, people are interested in supporting your organization. You welcome outside financial contributions.
Absolutely. We certainly welcome donations. There's a donate button on our website and on our social media Facebook page.
Okay, and the Facebook page you're listed under what?
Stronger Together Wellness.
Okay, so people can check that out. And you mentioned to me off there, currently, I guess you're in the process of a donor match program.
Absolutely.
What is, what is that?
We had a very generous donor offer $10,000, offered to match up to $10,000. So for every dollar donated, the donor will match that. So if you donate $25, it's $50. $100, it's 200, and so on. So, these dollars go to support our support groups. They support peer-to-peer relationships. They support our resources for caregivers and just helping to continue the life of Stronger Together Wellness and what we're doing.
It's probably exciting for you if this happens, that somebody survives a stroke, gets gets involved in your organization eventually. I guess at some point in time, you'd like to get them involved in the organization on their own.
Absolutely.
I
I would
guess
love that. Full circle.
I guess it's newish, it hasn't happened yet, but something you're looking forward to happening.
It is certainly. I would love that to have survivors that have gone through our program come back and be a part of our program, employed by it.
Okay, and you're certainly the example that you've gone through it and now actually started the organization. Where do you see this going, Matt, if you would say 5 years from now?
5 years, I would love for us to have a building where we can have our house our groups. Right now, we're looking for spaces that we can share or use, and I would love to have our own place where we can do that, where we can offer educational classes and bring in therapists and do arts and crafts and have music and things that are stimulating to our brains and working on whole health versus just the medical side of it.
Are the local hospitals supportive of you?
Yes, they are. They are. Mission has been very supportive. There are two stroke coordinators there that are really been helpful in supporting what we're doing, and we're open and accepting referrals from them.
Okay, I imagine that. And even in terms of meeting space, though, do they make a meeting space available or?
Well, we're currently using a facility in downtown Asheville called AmeriHealth Caritas, and they're part of that insurance company, but they are a community center that has meeting space, and it will provide services for hybrid or Zoom meetings and in person. So we're very grateful, and there's no charge for that.
Very nice. And so, if people come to these meetings, how often do they typically take place? Monthly or?
Yeah, they are monthly. I'd also like to add, Blaine, that our services, because we are a nonprofit, there's no charge, there's no fee to participate in our services.
But again, you indicated back to the website, people don't want to get involved. Best way, or if they want to give back to the organization, feel free to make a contribution anytime they want.
Absolutely.
And the contribution is tax deductible.
It
So,
is.
I guess to wrap up, best way to find out more about you is to go to the website. Website again was what?
StrongerTogetherWellness.org.
Okay. And again, way to find out more information or to get involved. That's your first step to get involved. And it sounds like you're welcoming, I guess, two groups of people. You welcome people who have gone through a stroke,
Hmm.
or you're welcoming people who are caregivers, which is
That's
very
right.
cool. Well, Matt,
Yeah,
that's quite something that, you started. Who would have thunk 14 years ago that you'd be running a nonprofit? And it sounds like it's keeping you a little bit busy.
It is just a little bit. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I want to thank you for being my guest, Matt McCoy, on this edition of Blaine's World webcast. I'd also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. Hopefully, somewhere down the road, we'll bump into each other, Matt. That'd be great. Thank you.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks, Blaine.